Hello, this is David Bull, woodblock printmaker resident in Tokyo. Welcome to my corner. We are at the moment in Asakusa in Tokyo. And literally, this is one corner of our shop where we sell and make woodblock prints. We've been making prints here for many, many years, and we make prints on numbers of different themes. We do replicas of old traditional designs. We work with new artists to make new prints as well. We're quite a wide-ranging woodblock workshop. But a few years ago, when I was reading my newspaper, something I saw in there really caught my eye. It was a story about the British Museum and the fact that they had acquired at auction a group of drawings from Katsushika Hokusai, whose name needs no introduction. And the interesting thing from my point of view about this was that these were drawings that had been intended to become woodblock prints, but which for some reason, which nobody knows, never went that far. So here I am, sitting on a woodblock print workshop with carvers and printers available, looking at the idea that there are original designs from Katsushika Hokusai from well over 100 years ago that didn't make it to the final production stage. 1 + 1 equals, you can add it up. So of course I got in touch with the British Museum and put the idea on the table that maybe my workshop could bring that publishing project to fruition after all these years. Now what's involved with actually doing this, turning those sketches into prints? Surely this technology mostly is lost, right? I mean, here in the modern world, we just don't have the same setup that they would have had in Edo in the 1840s. Well, actually, no. This is one of the motivating factors of our workshop. To as much as is possible, we stick to the old ways of doing things. So that when I got the copies of these images from the British Museum, I knew exactly what to do. I knew exactly how to start turning these into a finished book. It's a multi-stage process. It involves cleaning up the designs, getting them ready for wood blocks, actually pasting the designs onto wood, doing the carving, moving forward to the printing, testing different proofing methods, and ending up with a finished print. This we know how to do. Now, the one problem came up right away. The British Museum has over 100 of these drawings in this collection. There's no way I can take on the challenge of replicating the whole book as it was intended to be done. It would take us 10 years or more. We can't do that. But luckily, the designs in Hokusai's collection fall into a few groups. There's a group, for example, of pictures depicting the early roots of Buddhism in India. Another group depicts Chinese legends. These are all factors that very much affected Japanese history and cultural development. Another group is related to the natural world, something that is never far from Hokusai's brush. And then there's a group of sort of miscellaneous images. So what we planned on doing is this. We wanted to make a set of 12 prints. We thought this was doable. And I'm taking 3 from each of those 4 groups. The roots of Buddhism, Chinese legends, the natural world, and the miscellaneous one. It ties in perfectly with our system here because, as luck would have it, we have 3 Top Gun carvers here. Myself, a young imported apprentice, and then the man who helped me when I was learning how to do this, Motoharu Asaka. So we're going to make this set of 12, mixing the carving styles and mixing the Hokusai drawing styles, and we're going to come up with a set that wraps up in one small set the entire scope of this book. There's another reason yet, a little bit of a selfish reason why I felt this would be a really interesting project for me to take on. The other carvers working in Japan these days have spent all their career making reproductions of ukiyo-e prints. They copy Hokusai's Great Wave, or an Utamaro Beauty, or a Sharak Actor. It's been their job now for the last 100 years or so. Remember, there's no original ukiyo-e being created these days. So all the men working in the field are carving replicas. Now what that means is they are carving a woodblock print that was already carved once back in the old days. But think back to the old days when the original Great Wave was made. It wasn't copied from a woodblock print. It was made from Hokusai's drawings. So the carvers in the old days faced a different challenge than we do these days. The carver in the old days takes the brush strokes, which could be blurred, they could be rough, they could be all over the place, and translates them into sharp, concisely carved lines. All the men who are living today have never had that experience. They've simply made copies of things that already became a woodblock print. So this project gives me a chance to say, I can take Hokusai's work directly and look at it and think, how can I make every one of these lines into a beautiful carved woodblock print? It's a once in a lifetime chance for me. Now, those of you who know something about the production of Japanese prints know something important and are thinking, wait a minute, this cannot be possible. Normally, when we're making prints, the artist does produce a sketch and a drawing. Now, this sketch drawing is then passed to the carver, and as part of the production process, it's pasted on wood and gets destroyed by the carver's knife. So, like, I'm going to ask the British Museum, send me over 12 of these sketches. No, you're not going to get them back. This is obviously not possible. But here we are in 2023. And of course, there's a way around this. I'm not going to be able to see the original sketches at all. They are preparing very, very high resolution scans, and I'm going to receive that data. That data I will then use myself to print out at the appropriate size and the consistency ready to get going, and we will move forward with that. So it is my sample sheets that will end up being destroyed. The original Hokusai designs in the British Museum can rest safely for a few hundred more years. Now, this idea that our main work, our main job is translating Hokusai's lines into carved lines brings with it another interesting point. Each carver, without being able to control this, each carver brings his own taste to this. Now, I told you a bit earlier, we're going to have 3 carvers working in this project. So is this good news or bad news? Our finished project is going to have the taste of 3 men involved. We will be creating 3 different versions of Hokusai's drawings. This is going to show us extreme insight into exactly how this happened in the old days. We are going to learn how much of a woodblock print is the designer and how much of a woodblock print is the carver. One really very interesting part of this job, and one which astonishes people who come here and see how we do this, is the minimal level of technology that's required. We see the finished beautiful Edo era prints with many colors and beautiful carving and everything else, and we assume this must be quite a large factory involved in making these. It's none of the kind. The carving all happens exactly right here on a small bench like this. A piece of wood, 3 or 4 knives, we have a good light source, of course, and there's nothing more than this. The knife I mentioned, for example, a few minutes ago, it's a new piece of steel. It's been made by a workshop down the street here, but essentially it's the same kind of tool that would have been used back in the mid-1800s when this original book was being planned. There's almost no change in the materials. The cherry wood is the same type of cherry wood. The washi paper, of course, is the same kind of mulberry paper that would have been used back in the old days. For as much as possible, we are using the original tools and technologies. There's a few small changes. For example, the wood blocks we use these days, we put a plywood core on the inside. It doesn't affect the actual printing surface itself, which would be the same as Hokusai's printers would recognize, but it makes the wood much more stable, less likely to warp. We get more prints out of each given block. But that's the only kind of change we make. At core, it's exactly the same technology as you would have seen in 1840. I say the tools didn't change very much, but actually there's one tool right here which actually we do understand wasn't available in Hokusai's day. Of course, back in his day, there was no electric light, flip a switch and you've got it. They would have been using candles or lamps of some kind, or carving in front of a natural window. We learned that somewhere around the Meiji era, and I'm guessing it must be Meiji because this obviously looks like a Western influence here. Somewhere around the Meiji time, the carvers learned that by preparing a flask full of water, the light source coming in could be beautifully diffused across their surface of their wood, and the knife, no longer having sharp shadows, is much more clear. But perhaps in Hokusai's era, this was not thought of yet. Think of this. The tool that the designer used was a brush, a hairbrush. The tool that I'm going to use to replicate this is a steel knife. Now, how can I do this? Can I, with this piece of steel, this hard, sharp steel, can I catch all the nuances and subtleties of that little bit of hair dripping ink? Yes, I can. That's part of our job. That's how we live every day, looking at the drawing and thinking, where will the knife go? Where will the knife flow? Over my hand, under my hand, how deep to cut? This is our challenge. This is our pride. And the finished results, this is our pleasure. Now, it's been about a half a year now since I first contacted the British Museum with the idea that we could do this. The response was excellent. We got busy planning, and where are we now? It's now March 2023. The first print actually is finished. I traced it, I cut it, I printed all the copies. It's out to the subscribers all over the world. The second one, tracing is finished, carving is finished, and as we speak right now, the printer upstairs is working on getting a few hundred copies made. The next one is still being carved.